This tutorial is on basic Excel formulas. Formulas can be very confusing at times in Excel, but there are some very basic ones that we use. On this page you can see there are some formulas already in play, and Tim has created these. And there are 2 or 3 different basic formulas that you'll use often. Whenever you're doing a formula, the first thing you should do is always type in equals sum in parentheses. When you do that, this is telling Excel that you're getting ready to do a formula. If you do that, you will always be generating a formula. There's other ways around it, but that's the basic way. One way is to do equals sum and select a specific number of cells. If you do that and then click enter, it'll add up these specific cells. You can also do a formula adding up individual cells equals sum of. When I do parentheses in my mind, I always say of. And you can see they're suggesting how to do this. This, and then you want to do a comma and say this, and click enter, and do a total of those 2 cells. Double click and you can see exactly what's going on in there. And the nice thing is that it shows you which cells it's doing and color codes them. Another formula that you might often use is division equals sum of that divided by 3 and enter. Or multiplication, or addition. Although addition is weird, it will want you to use a comma if you do addition. And even another formula that you'll use is if you want to add up an entire section and then divide it by a number, equals sum of all of this, and you do it in parentheses, divided by 3. Enter. So what that just did was tell Excel that first you need to do this section, and then you need to divide that whole thing by 3. Parentheses are very important whenever you're doing these. When you get more advanced in doing formulas, it gets a little bit awkward of trying to figure out how Excel wants to do specific formulas. So for instance, if you want to do equals sum of this, you have to do parentheses divided by sum of this. And if you do something that does it wrong, it'll give you an option. Click yes, and you can see that I had to do a sum there. If I had done this equals sum of this, parentheses, divided by parentheses this, and hit enter, it doesn't like that. So you can see that we have this, which doesn't work, but the right way is to have the sum in there. If you want to know more about advanced formulas, you can either go online, or the HOA building has a couple books on Excel that you can look into. One other thing that's important to note is sometimes you need to know a sum, but you don't want to do a formula. You can select the cells that you want to do a sum of, and you can actually come down here and see that it shows you the total. It also gives you the count of how many cells have numbers in them, and it also gives you the average of those numbers. So you have these 3 options down here. So for instance, if I wanted to do a count of all these cells that have numbers in them, there's 72 cells that have numbers specifically in them. Its average of all those cells is 6,200, and the sum is 448,000. One other type of formula that we use is keeping track of accumulating totals in specific cells. So for instance, if you look in HOA running financials, this is the financials of all invoices that come through. So you can come over here, for instance, on 65, and every time we get an invoice, we'll come in here, for instance, on August actual under contract labor. And you can see that we have, for each invoice that we've received from contract labor, we've done a even more basic formula of equals, and then one invoice and plus, and then another invoice and plus, and then another invoice. So if I wanted to add to this, I could come in here and do plus 785 and enter, and that will have added that to that particular cell. You can see what it was before and now what it is. So it's another very basic formula, and very seldom will use it except for in this document. This is the only document that I use it in. And that's a basic tutorial on how to do the most used formulas that we use in HOA.